Hey, it's Dave Brown here, host of Now with Dave Brown on AMI. Check out this latest highlight from the show.
I'm about to criticize you. Or maybe not. Maybe you'll take a compliment from this. Turns out Canadians are not great with estate planning. 51% of Canadians do not have a will, according to an Angus Reid survey. Even people who have wills don't keep them up to date. Just over 12% of Canadians keep their will up to date. These numbers caught Aaron Broverman's attention. Aaron is the lead editor at Forbes Advisor Canada. Hey, good morning, Aaron.
Morning, Dave. How are you this morning?
Aaron, I'm well. I just shared a couple of the key findings from the Angus Reid survey. Wyatt, what strikes you about these numbers?
I mean, this doesn't surprise me because even when I was putting together my will in, I think like 2021, leading up to it, it was sort of like, oh, right, we got to put together a will. And even when we were planning on doing it, we were putting it off a little bit. And I think that's what Canadians are doing. I also think that people's perception of what they have to do for a will is a lot more complex than it actually is. I think they think they have to delineate every single thing that they own to like a beneficiary, and that's just not the case.
Okay, Aaron, you and I can break down this process step by step in a second, but let's start a little bit broader. Why should someone make a will?
You should make a will so that your assets go to the people you want it to go to. You want them to go to, because if you have insurance and you name a beneficiary, your insurance will go right away to the beneficiary that you name. But what about the other stuff? And when you die, there are a lot of expenses. There are funeral expenses. There are lawyer fees, all kinds of things. So it is important to at least direct the assets that you leave behind to the people you want to have them. Plus, if you don't have a will, that could mean more expenses for the people left behind. And also, you're leaving it up to every province to decide how they parse out your estate. And in every province, that procedure is different. So it's much more arbitrary unless you have an actual will.
Aaron, scratch a little bit deeper there. What happens if somebody doesn't have the will and the province takes over? Like, what could potentially happen?
If you don't have a will and the province takes over, they have their own rules as to who gets what. For example, in Manitoba, it's down to a hierarchy of beneficiaries that they have previously determined. So regardless of who you want to get what, it's just going to go by the hierarchy, usually starting with your children. In Ontario, if there are no children, your spouse gets your entire estate. And if there are children, if there's one child, it's split 50-50 between your spouse and your child. If there are more than one child, then the child gets 2/3 of your estate, and the spouse gets 1/3 of your estate.
Okay.
So it just depends. Like, there are like arbitrary rules. I mean, if you left this world not really liking your spouse or not wanting them to have half of everything that you leave behind, you probably don't want to live in Ontario if you don't have children. So if you have specific things you want to make sure happen, you have to outline them in a will. Not to mention, for a trustee to go through your entire estate and divvy everything up, that costs money.
Right. Or if I have my funeral instructions that I want to be set off into Lake Ontario on a funeral pyre, like that's got to be there too, and that costs money as well. Aaron, here's where I confess to you. I am one of the 51% of Canadians who does not have a legal will, and I'm now beginning to worry about everything that I do because I cross Don Mills every day and there's a lot of buses. So walk me through this. What's the process of putting together a will?
Basically, you have to meet with a estate planning lawyer, a person who specializes in wills. but it doesn't have to be super expensive, especially if your estate or your assets aren't that complex. It can be as little as $300 in Ontario to get a will done, and you don't have to go through meticulously and say, oh, I want my mother to get my special, teapot, and I want my father to get this particular part of money. And what about this? You don't have to go through everything. You can just say, I want all my assets, anything I leave behind, to be split 50-50 between my children, or you can just give like a percentage. You could say,
Right.
I want my wife to have it all. You don't necessarily have to go through everything, and you don't really have to leave any specific instructions about a particular item. So it could be a really short appointment. Like, I mean, my wife and I did it over Zoom. It took about an hour. The only thing we had to do was go to the lawyer's office in Toronto to sign the documents. And after that, it was pretty much done. No hassle. Way less hassle than they portray in the movies, where everyone's standing around and, they have a list of items that, each person gets and that sort of thing. It doesn't work like that.
Aaron, I'm very encouraged to know that I don't need to assign which of my dirty gym shirts are going to who in my family after I get hit by that bus on Don Mills. So that's very, very rewarding for me. Aaron, I know you're having this very serious, honest conversation here, but I want to wrap up on this question, because this is where my brain goes around wills and estate plannings and my midlife crisis. How much of this is about people not wanting to think about their own mortality?
I really think that this is about people not wanting to think about their own mortality. And if you connect it to people with disabilities, that's why I think you see less consideration taken to accessibility and that sort of thing, because people don't think about things unless it happens to them, right? And I think, confronting the needs of people with disabilities, confronting your will, basically lets people know that they're going to get older and they're going to die. And unless you're a very confident, perhaps religious person, you don't really know where you're going. So I definitely think this is about confronting your own mortality, but really, you have to think about it as leaving the people you leave behind in a good place, because, funerals aren't really for the dead. They're for the living. And if you want to make sure that your children in particular are set up, you have to put together a will. Otherwise, you're just leaving them with a lot of confusion and a lot of expenses and some arbitrary process that you, if you really thought about it, probably didn't want it to go down that way with your estate.
Aaron, thank you for always being the adult in the room. One day I will grow up and mature like you.
Thank you, Dave. That's such a compliment. And I think my wife and son may beg to differ on some occasions, but I really appreciate it.
Oh, Aaron, thanks, sir. Have a great day. That's Aaron Broverman, the lead editor at Forbes Advisor Canada. You can follow Aaron on Twitter at Broverman, or as I say sometimes around the post-show meeting, the Broverman. Broverman on Twitter at Broverman.
Do you want to dive into more conversations like this? Watch Now with Dave Brown weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on AMI.TV, or download the podcasts wherever you listen. Do you want to dive into more conversations like this? Watch Now with Dave Brown weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on AMI.TV, or download the podcasts wherever you listen.